Here's a question nobody at work is going to ask you around the coffee machine. Are you actually on track to retire? Not, do you have a 401k? Because having a 401k and being on track to retire are two completely different things. I'm talking about the real math. The number where you wake up one morning, check your account, and genuinely know that you never have to work again unless you want to. Most people avoid running that math. And I think deep down, a lot of us already know why. Here's the situation most people are quietly living in. You're in your 30s or 40s, maybe even your 50s. You have a job, you contribute something, probably whatever your employer matches, to a retirement account. You tell yourself you'll ramp it up later. You've been telling yourself that for a while now. Meanwhile, the years are ticking by. The account is growing, sure, but slowly. And somewhere in the back of your mind, there's this low level, constant hum of financial anxiety you've learned to just live with, like a check engine light you've been ignoring for 2 years. That anxiety has a name. It's the gap between where you are and where you need to be. And for most Americans, that gap is enormous. But here's what I find fascinating and a little maddening. The people who do retire comfortably, they're usually not smarter than you. They're not earning dramatically more than you. They just figured out a few specific things earlier, and those things compounded into a completely different financial life. Today, I want to show you exactly what those things are. My name is Tom, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, retirement psychology, and why two people can earn the same salary for 40 years and end up in completely different financial realities. If you're someone who's serious about understanding how retirement actually works, not the feel-good version they sell you in a brochure, but the real math, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what we cover on this channel. And if this video ends up helping you see your own timeline more clearly, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up. All right, let's get into it. Let's start with the most uncomfortable question in personal finance. How much money do you actually need to retire? Not a vague a lot or $1 million sounds right. The specific number. Your number. Most people have never calculated it. And that's the first reason most people will never retire. Not because they can't save, but because they're saving toward a target they've never actually defined. Here's the simplest version of the math. Financial planners use what's called the 4% rule. The idea is that if your annual retirement spending is 4% of your total savings, your money should last 30 years. So you flip it. Take your expected annual expenses in retirement and multiply by 25. If you plan to spend $50,000 a year in retirement, you need $1.25 million. If you want $80,000 a year, you need $2 million. If you're thinking $100,000 a year, that's $2.5 million. Here's the uncomfortable part. The Federal Reserve's most recent data shows the median retirement savings for Americans approaching retirement age, we're talking 55 to 64, is around $185,000. At the 4% rule, $185,000 generates about $7,400 a year in retirement income. That's roughly $616 a month. That is not retirement. That is financial survival with a different schedule. So how does a country of hardworking people end up so far behind? It's not laziness. It's three silent killers that operate so quietly, most people don't notice them until it's too late. Silent killer Hasson, starting late. This one is brutal because of the math involved. Let me show you two people. Person A starts investing $400 a month at age 25. They do this for 10 years and then completely stop, never invest another dollar. By age 65, at an 8% average annual return, they have approximately $557,000. Person B waits until age 35 to start. They invest the same $400 a month, but they do it every single month for 30 straight years. They invest 3 times as long and 3 times as much total money. By age 65, they have approximately $544,000. Person B invested $144,000. Person A invested just $48,000. Person A wins. By starting 10 years earlier and investing for a fraction of the time, that's not a motivational story. That's just compound interest being ruthless about time. Every year you delay is not a neutral decision, it costs you specifically and mathematically. Silent killer hash 2 lifestyle creep. Here's a pattern that destroys more retirement timelines than almost anything else. You get a raise, your income goes up, and within 6 to 12 months, your lifestyle quietly expands to consume every single dollar of that raise. Nicer apartment, newer car, more subscriptions, better restaurants. The upgrade feels so gradual you barely notice it. The problem is that wealth is not built from income. Wealth is built from the gap between income and spending. Every time you expand your lifestyle to match your income, you close that gap to zero. You're back to running on a treadmill faster now, but still going nowhere. The people who retire early and comfortably, they get raises and let their investment accounts feel it before their lifestyle does. Sometimes their lifestyle barely moves at all. That sounds extreme, but there's a version of it that's completely achievable. It just requires making the choice consciously instead of letting the upgrade happen automatically. Silent killer hash 3, the wrong vehicles. This one is a little more nuanced but equally damaging. A lot of people are saving, they have money going somewhere every month, but it's sitting in a regular savings account earning 0.5% interest, or parked in a money market earning slightly more, or, and this one really hurts, sitting in a 401k that's never been allocated into anything, just sitting in the default stable value option your HR department set up in 2014. Meanwhile, inflation is running at 3-4% annually, which means in a savings account, you're not growing your money. You're slowly losing purchasing power while feeling financially responsible. The difference between money in a high yield savings account and money consistently invested in a low cost index fund over 30 years is not small. It's the difference between hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes millions. Now, here's where a lot of people's retirement math falls apart completely. They're counting on Social Security to fill the gap. The average monthly Social Security benefit right now is around $1,750. That's about $21,000 a year. For context, the federal poverty line for an individual is roughly $15,000. So, Social Security keeps you out of poverty, maybe. In most major cities, $21,000 a year doesn't even cover rent, and that's assuming the program pays out at current levels by the time you retire. The Social Security Trustee's own reports have stated for years that the trust fund is projected to be depleted sometime around 2033, at which point, without legislative changes, benefits could be cut by roughly 20-25%. I'm not saying Social Security will disappear. Congress will almost certainly act before then. But building your entire retirement plan on a government program that even its own administrators project may face significant cuts, that's not a retirement strategy. That's a hope strategy. Okay, so let's talk about the people on the other side of this. The ones who do retire on time, or early, or comfortably. What are they actually doing? It comes down to four things. One, they defined the number. They sat down at some point, usually years earlier than you'd expect, and actually calculated what they needed. They know their target, they check their progress against it. It's not abstract. It's a specific number on a spreadsheet they update at least once a year. You cannot hit a target you've never aimed at. Two, they automated the savings before lifestyle could claim it. The moment money lands in a checking account, lifestyle is already lining up to spend it. The people who build real wealth learned to reroute the money before they could touch it. Automatic 401k contributions, automatic transfer to a brokerage account on payday. The money never existed in their daily budget, so they didn't miss it. Their lifestyle adjusted to what remained, not the other way around. 3, they treated investing like a fixed bill, not something they did with what's left over. Because here's the truth, there is never anything left over. If saving comes last in your monthly budget, saving gets nothing. The people who retire move investing to the top of the list. Pay yourself first is a cliche because it's true and almost nobody actually does it. 4, they got boring. Seriously. The most successful long-term investors are almost aggressively unexciting about how they invest. low cost index funds, consistent contributions, automatic reinvestment, no chasing hot stocks, no panic selling during market drops, no switching strategies. Every 18 months, they let time and compound interest do the heavy lifting, and it works every time for people patient enough to leave it alone. Let me address the thing you might be thinking right now. I'm behind. But I'll catch up once the kids are through school, once the house is paid off, once I get my next promotion. I hear that a lot, and I understand why it's comforting, but catching up later is significantly harder than you think. To illustrate, if you're 40 years old and want to retire at 65 with $1.5 million, and you currently have $50,000 saved, you need to invest roughly $1,900 a month for the next 25 years at an 8% return. That's not impossible, but it's a very different life than investing $600 a month at 30 and reaching the same destination more comfortably. Every year you wait, the monthly number you need to invest goes up, and it doesn't go up gradually. It accelerates because the years you're losing are the early years, the ones where compound interest is doing the most work. Later is expensive. Later gets more expensive every year you wait. One more thing before we wrap up, because I see this mistake constantly. Don't assume that a high income solves this. It doesn't. I know people earning $200,000 a year who are completely unprepared for retirement because their lifestyle has grown to match and in many cases exceed their income. High earners with $9,000 credit card balances and no investment accounts outside their 401k minimum. And I know people earning $55,000 a year who are quietly, methodically on track for a genuinely comfortable retirement because they started early, kept their lifestyle reasonable, and never stopped contributing. Income is an input, what you do with it is the output. And the output is the only thing that actually matters. So let's bring this together. Most people will not retire comfortably, not because the system failed them, though the system has plenty of problems, but because of three quiet, compounding mistakes: starting too late, letting lifestyle absorb every raise, and saving in the wrong places. The people who do retire, they define their number. They automated their savings. They treated investing like a non-negotiable bill, and they kept it boring for decades. None of that requires genius. None of it requires luck. It requires starting specifically and seriously today. Not when the kids are done with school, not after the next raise, today. Because here's the thing, your future self cannot go back and fix the years you delayed, but they will absolutely feel them. The only version of this story that ends well is the one where you decide right now to be the person who actually ran the math. Go run the math.